I think AI is the place where I feel really lit up to like both learn how to grow myself, but also teach other people, other therapists, particularly how to use it.
This episode is sponsored by TherapyNotes, therapynotes.com. Be sure and check them out and be sure and use the promo code Gordon, Gordon, and you can try them out for 2 months for free. Over 15 years ago, when I started my private practice, I had to learn a lot, and most of it the hard way, and I don't think you need to do the same. Hi, I'm Gordon Brewer, a licensed psychotherapist, and welcome to the Practice of Therapy podcast, part of the Psychcraft network of podcasts. Join me in this journey of discovery as we have conversations with other leaders and professionals in both the mental and allied health fields. Join us as we explore both the business and clinical sides of running a private practice. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the podcast. This is Gordon Brewer, and this is episode number 396 of the Practice of Therapy podcast. Glad you're with me in this journey, and hope you'll take time to follow us or subscribe to the podcast wherever you might be listening to it. I'm looking forward to you hearing my guest for this particular episode, Dr. Stephanie Thrower, and we have a conversation about some ways that she's discovered and is really jumping into using AI, artificial intelligence, in her practice, particularly around marketing and really helping clarify your message to get out to folks so that they can connect with you in a meaningful way, and just some of the ethics around using AI and that sort of thing. And so I hope you'll enjoy this conversation because I think you're going to be hearing a lot more about the use of AI, as we already know. I mean, it's kind of old news now, but I know in my own practice and in my own consulting particularly, I'm just amazed at what you can do with the AI as far as training it and just really streamlining things and getting access to information really quickly, and really such a time saver when it comes to getting information, doing research, all of those kinds of things. It's just been a total game changer. So anyway, looking forward to you hearing my conversation with Stephanie. And before we get to that, real quickly, one of the things that I'd like to put out there for you is if you're interested in working with me and doing some consulting or just some coaching, I'd love to talk to you. So if you'll go over to practiceoftherapy.com/ coaching and consulting, or you can just simply go to practiceoftherapy.com and click on the link there that's right on the front page of that just says coaching and consulting. You can find out more about that. I love being able to do kind of the one-on-one deep dive with people, and as far as helping them figure out what are the things that they need to do to grow and thrive in their practice. And I've got a pretty laid back style, which I think most people tend to like, and I may or may not be a fit for you, so I'm not trying to do a hard sell here. But if you're interested in working with me, be sure and check that out, or just email me at gordon@practiceoftherapy.com, and we can start the conversation and see what that could look like for you. And also, real quickly, before we get to my conversation with Stephanie, I'd love for you to hear from one of the members of the Psychcraft network, of which this podcast is a member, along with some words from our sponsor of the podcast, TherapyNotes.
Hi there, I'm Julie Harris. I'm an accountant, and I'm the host of the Therapy for Your Money podcast. In the podcast, we talk about all things money and finance, specifically for therapists in private practice. You see, my accounting firm, Green Oak Accounting, specializes in working with therapists in private practice. That's all we do at this point. And over the years, we've learned so many tips and tricks for how to make the financial side of private practice work better. After all, we've seen under the hood of hundreds and hundreds of private practices. So in the podcast, I share lots of financial tools and tips and mindset shifts to help you have a profitable private practice. Therapy for Your Money is part of the Psycraft network of podcasts. a network of independent podcasters just like me. So head over to therapyforyourmoney.com to hear episodes on topics like growing your practice, making more money without necessarily working harder, weathering the ups and downs of a practice, and so much more. Come join me at therapyforyourmoney.com.
Rachel here with a quick shout out to TherapyNotes, the EHR that Gordon uses and loves for running his group practice. If you've ever been looking for a solid, all-in-one platform to manage your notes, scheduling, billing, and even secure client messaging, this is it. Gordon's been using TherapyNotes for years, and it's honestly made a huge difference in how smooth things run behind the scenes. He's always saying how it saves him time and keeps everything organized, and as a practice owner, that's huge. And get this, they've just rolled out Therapy Fuel, which is an amazing suite of AI tools that help write your notes faster. You can generate progress notes from session summaries or even from transcriptions. You can also create contact notes straight from secure messages and automatically summarize client history forms. Basically, it's like having a little documentation assistant built right in. Plus, TherapyNotes is always adding new features like automated payments, secondary insurance billing, and a growing library of outcome measures. And if you ever get stuck, their customer service is phenomenal. Seriously, you can call or email 24/7 and talk to someone who actually knows what they're doing. So, if you've ever been thinking about switching or just getting started, now's a great time. Head over to therapynotes.com, click Start My Free Trial, and use the promo code GORDON to get 2 months free. All right, back to the show.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome again to the podcast. And I'm really happy for you to get to know today Dr. Stephanie Thrower. Welcome, Stephanie. Glad you're here.
I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yes, I'm looking forward to our conversation because this is such a hot topic right now, particularly in our fields, and that's around AI and how we can use it and different ways that we can kind of think outside the box. But as I start with everyone, Stephanie, tell folks a little more about yourself and how you've landed where you've landed.
Yeah, I have experienced a lot of different things in my career. And I remember being, even in my training years, I would hand my resume over to someone and they'd be like, oh, this is a really interesting resume. Like, you have done quite a bit of things. And what I've learned is just I'm a vocational psychologist by training. A fair amount of my training was done at the VA and trauma training as well. And I love working in the space of career and also in business, right? Like if you're working with people who largely have businesses, which is a nice place to be in, you're thinking about all the different hats they have to wear. And yes, as someone who wanted to have more hats and wants to have more hats in my career, I started to develop a coaching program and kind of tripped around different niches because I have a lot of different interests. And I even built a few courses in the process and was like, oh no, this isn't the right niche for me. I'm going to kind of pivot and switch. And the more I was doing that, the more I was using AI to help develop really interesting tools and really helpful ways to market myself. And in that process, I was like, no, you know what? I think AI is the place where I feel really lit up to like both learn how to grow myself, but also teach other people, other therapists, particularly how to use it.
Yeah, that's and it's been amazing just all the things that have come into fruition with AI in just a short period of time. And I know I'm making use of it about every day, just with some of my content and getting ideas and just streamlining what I do and that sort of thing. And so maybe a place to start is maybe tell folks a little bit about how you're using it and where you see the big potential is for using AI, maybe outside of helping with session notes. Of course, that's a big one too, but other ways in which you're finding it really helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'm using a couple of different tools pretty much on a regular basis. And those tools might be a bit different in my therapy practice than with my coaching practice. But in my therapy practice, I'm certainly using AI notes, which I feel like as someone who had a pretty efficient note system, I was like, why would I need that? Right. It only takes me a couple minutes. And I finally got around to like exploring, and especially having like trained and learned a lot about AI, I've been so impressed with the results. I think it improves my practice often to
Hmm.
see the kind of work and the kind of reflections that are being made. Because, you're so in it sometimes and you don't recognize, like, oh, yeah, I am doing all of these things. And the notes can often
Hmm.
reflect those interventions really well, or even sometimes be like, oh, that was an interesting direction to go in. It reminds me of being in
Hmm.
grad school, literally transcribing notes. I don't know if you remember doing that, but
Yeah, yeah.
like it's just a wild thing, right? That's what we did. So yeah, and then the marketing piece is like a huge, and being in private practice, I went to private pay last 2 years ago. And so the marketing game has really needed to step up of
Hmm.
making sure that I have regular blog posts, I have really clear writing, I have a sense of who my ideal client is. Like, it's just required more from me in that way. And AI has been super helpful to build up that content on a regular basis. And then in the coaching practice, very similarly, I use AI to build, well, I should say I do some career coaching too. And so I've always done career assessments.
Hmm.
But in the past, they've mostly been like, I've sent them a PDF or a document where they go through and like fill out all the tools that and they use. I get the results and then I synthesize the results.
Hmm.
Now I include AI in the process of doing a pre-analysis. And that has been so cool because it's like a
Hmm.
working document that then gets stored in their own accounts. And they're like looking through to see like, oh, what does like my career profile look like? So building those tools has been one of the coolest pieces of like walking towards like creating innovative tools in our space.
Yeah, yeah. And I think what I'm learning is just the importance of knowing how to write prompts for AI and creating templates for that and that sort of thing. You want to say something about that? Because I think that's, really training the AI to think like you think is
Totally.
almost, yeah.
Yeah, I think that we are in a very fast changing landscape of like what's available for us with our AI tools, right? So like when we talk about AI, we usually mean something that's like a large language model like ChatGPT, Claude is something that's really great to help us write. People like Gemini, which is Google's, and but I
Hmm.
haven't done a ton of work in that. And then we've got a couple other handfuls that are like popular.
Hmm.
When it comes to, I would say that in the last 5 months, prompting needs have changed so much. Like they keep hearing the feedback, like the people who create these tools, the software, they hear the feedback from users about how to prompt, and then they kind of reprogram and code things in so you don't have to do it so well.
Hmm.
So before, your prompt structure used to be pretty like clear, right? But I think that so we do want to, part of this is us humans learning how to ask what we need from
Right. Uh-huh.
and I don't, it's almost, I always use the example of, I don't know if you've ever done the exercise where you're supposed to teach someone how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich that's an alien that has no idea. And like, it's like, put the peanut butter on the bread and like someone puts a jar of peanut butter on top of the
Yeah,
bread, right?
yes, yes. I saw a video on social media of like a school teacher doing exactly that, trying to teach their kids how to write more precisely. And so, yeah, she was spreading peanut butter on the bread bag on the whole loaf of bread and just all kinds of stuff like that. It was pretty funny.
Exactly. And oftentimes that's what's happening with AI with large language models when they give us really bad input or output, it's because we confused them in the words that we made. It's like can you make it really detailed but really short, right? Like these are
Mm-hmm.
pretty like competing concepts.
Mm-hmm.
And so being a good reader is actually really important when you're thinking about writing your prompts well.
Mm-hmm.
And being a good reader of the output and giving feedback is so important because these large language models are really trained to, they want you to just stay working with them and feel really good about what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so we might be less inclined to be like, no, that's not it. No, do this instead, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, as I think maybe one thing that might be of interest to people is how you're using AI for marketing your practice, and particularly going from being in a cash-based practice, how that can be helpful.
Absolutely. I think that when you are trying to market yourself, when there's a lot of competition and when many people might feel like, oh, I don't know if I can afford, I can spend that much on therapy, you really need to find your ideal client so that when you're writing, when you are expressing anything from yourself and your practice out there in the world, it feels like people are like, oh my gosh, you're really talking to me. I think you could really help me. As opposed to just sometimes in therapy, it's like, oh, I could just use anyone to hear me listen and talk, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you're in a practice that's a bit more specialized, I think for us therapists, often we are socialized to communicate in a way that does not connect with most clients, right? Sometimes the more trained we are, the further we are away from
Mm-hmm.
connecting with our clients. Like, and I think that's true even if you were saying like, oh, I'm really interested in treating trauma and I was really interested in like certain like OCD or anxiety, like I think you kind of communicate your interest in your own training and the models and the theories
Mm-hmm.
when as a
Mm-hmm.
client, that is like the last thing they care about,
Right.
and I can relate to
Right.
that too as a client, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the way that I use AI often is to help translate that place between my interest and my voice, somehow keeping my voice, but also doing some transition, some translating in some ways to connect with what my clients are really struggling with, what language
Right.
they would connect with.
Yes.
So it's
Uh-huh.
not just about sounding like me, it's also actually sounding like good marketing, good copywriting, which I was not trained in,
Right.
you
Right.
know.
Yeah. And that's such a good point, because I know in the years that I've been doing what I've been doing as far as marketing goes, you really have to, like we've said, is, identify a niche, who is my ideal client, and then how do they think about their own problems in a non-clinical way, because that's what they're going to relate to, is just using non-clinical language. And you're exactly right. I mean, listing my credentials and how much I've been trained in this or that doesn't resonate with anybody. They just think, well, I don't know if they're going to be able to help me or not. And so being able to
Totally.
should tell, so being able to communicate well how you can help them with a particular problem.
Boost your career with Wharton's Advanced Finance Program. Designed for rising executives, it offers finance skills in a flexible format, personalized coaching, a global network, and alumni status. Learn more at whartonafp.com.
Yeah, and I think that it's completely awesome that we kind of nerd out on our own professional concepts,
Hmm.
I don't think it's about getting rid of that. I could sit and talk for hours about someone's results from the career profile, but they
Uh-huh.
don't, but that's not the point. It's not just the results. It's like, how does knowing this help me do
Hmm.
A, B, C? How am I going to make better decisions in the future? Because
Yeah.
of what we know, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I think too, the other thing is as you've already alluded to, Stephanie, is the fact that none of us are trained in marketing or kind of the business side of things. And So knowing how to write good marketing emails or copy and all of that kind of thing is just tough for us because we're good at empathizing with people and conveying empathy, but that might not always be the best marketing strategy.
Totally. And I think what I've noticed has been really interesting is, when you're working with your AI, it's helpful when you have your own paid accounts, which I generally recommend you have one or two paid accounts for if you're using it for marketing, right? It should pay for itself. But
Mm-hmm.
you want it to have some kind of organized structure to it, because part of getting quality results is like you're building a house of like labeled ideas and how they relate to one another. And so I have like a project folder where I would talk a lot about my business, or I talk a little bit more about like content that I'm creating for my marketing, my practice. And they're separated out, which I think they should be. I've gotten conversations with ChatGPT to recommend books based on the thing I was struggling with. And
Mm-hmm.
every book that has been recommended has been such the mind shift that both the skills and the mindset shift I needed.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of being like, okay, you're telling me all this stuff, ChatGPT, but like, give me a reference for like how I
Mm-hmm.
could expand my knowledge. And I bring that up because in the marketing space, I feel like we as therapists think of marketing as like obnoxious ads
Mm-hmm.
that interrupt your time, that, it's almost like people who come to the door to sell something at 5 p.m. It's just like,
All right.
I'm just sitting down for dinner. I don't want to be dealing with this. And I think that is it. There's some emotional piece as well as actually learning the skill. And so that's something I also help with people, is helping them understand like the visibility. You're not trying to be obnoxious to people. You're trying to be top of mind and to be seen for all the cool work you do,
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And it's a way of helping them find you too. There's been a few times I've mentioned on this podcast just that whole concept of the movie The Field of Dreams, build it and they will come. Well, you can build it, but you also need to tell them about it so they will come, because if they don't know about it, they're not going to just come automatically. Yeah.
Yeah, those ghosts are going to a different field, right? Or a different
Yeah.
baseball
Right.
field.
Right. Right.
You gotta shout out to say like, hey, like this is the spot, right? Yeah.
Right. Right. Oh boy. So, well, what are some of the other things that you're been working on and really developing that people could benefit from?
I think in the space of creating marketing for yourself that doesn't feel like such a huge lift, right? So we want our craft, our actual skills of working with people to be the focal point of our careers, but we also need to learn how to market ourselves if we have a practice, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
I work with people to create a process of turning like 15-minute voice memos into a blog, right? A nice chunky 2,000-word blog that will help to build their SEO and their website. And also they can post it in something like Substack, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or I don't know, I think it would be really cool to do like an audio book, but it's like an audio blog, right? So you read aloud, just
Mm-hmm.
having different spaces to share your voice. And part of that process looks like training your AI to be able to write, like, because it takes a fair amount of work to create like a quality blog, but also, you doing your own training to understand like what are the main questions that my ideal clients want to be they're asking and they want to be talking about. And but I find that system is just so doable because I have 15 minutes to talk into my phone while I'm walking my baby out, like while I'm living my life. And it doesn't like I can get a blog written in 30 minutes that feels really quality and still not plagiarizing, right? It's coming
Mm-hmm.
from my jumbled words and the values that my practice, like all those things. So,
Right. Right. Right.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been fascinating to be able to see how AI builds on itself And just, I've recently been putting together a course using Claude AI. And, I spent a lot of time on the prompt to say, okay, draw from these resources. This is the concept. This is the audience, all of those kinds of things. And then you put it in, and just within a few minutes, it spits out just this unbelievable amount of content that would have taken me months to create, to type out myself. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And I think course development and is one of my like most favorite ways of supporting people, particularly in thinking about how can we have a whole new way of teaching, right? So I think when we had prepared courses in the past, it was like your standard video, maybe some worksheets, right? And I think that what we find, the statistics of how people complete courses is very sad, right? Like
Right.
it's something like
Yeah.
20% of courses are completed. And I'm a pretty type A student, and I still have many courses that are just maybe like, 70% done. And it's just hard to get them all done. So
Right.
I think that I think because the world is a bit more open book now with AI, I think it's more about creating interactive tools that we can be teaching people to gain the skills in the moment. So what that looks like is creating like a custom GPT that people can like interact with, that has both this like big fancy prompt, but also has like embedded knowledge.
Yeah.
And so that sounds all very like obscure, but when I think about actually creating those, like in my course, we work with something called the messaging mentor, and it asks people one question at a time and builds the knowledge of like, what should my messaging sound like? And that process it's like working in a lab as opposed to being in a course that is just like so passive, if that makes sense.
Right.
And they're
Yeah.
getting live feedback on how they're doing in their, like how they're creating assets, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fascinating. Yeah, it's just fascinating all that can be done now. And I'm still in the infancy stage and knowing how to navigate all that. So yeah. So Stephanie, I've got to be aware of your time and just thinking about all this. Tell folks more about your course and the things that you have and that sort of thing.
Yeah, so I have a course or a program that has a live component. So we have a group live meeting once a week, but also we have recorded course with access to custom GPTs and a lot of AI tools that I've made. So there's two things I really like to make and teach people to make is a custom GPT, which I guess in some ways is a fancy prompt with like knowledge embedded. And I also make AI journals, which is it's like a Google Doc that is a series of questions with prompts at the end. And as basic as that sounds, I think as therapists, we have a lot of really cool ideas that we can help people reflect on to grow and then have interactive feedback with these journals. It's like I said, it's a living document that we can refeed into our AI, and it can be super useful.
Right.
So in that process, I help people build typically something outside of build and both market something outside of one-to-one therapy. But I also work with therapists to help them optimize their marketing using AI. And that often will look like developing long format content that then can be pieced into smaller pieces. Because most of us, if people are marketing themselves on social media, it's like they're building their marketing like leaf by leaf as opposed to the roots of the tree, right? So finding a way that's much more sustainable for them to not have to every day wake up and be like, what am I going to post about? What am I going to talk about? Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Where can people find the course?
So I have two places that people can access. So I have my website, which is coachingwithdrthrower.com. And then the program is described in that website. But I also have a free Facebook group where people can come in and see live trainings every week. We talk a lot about all the different ways that we can use AI. There's quite a few coaches and therapists in there already who are really excited about the process of integrating AI into their work to make things easier, to make things better. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
well, good.
sorry, the answer to that was the group is called AI Tools for Change, and I'll give you the link so that people can click in.
Sure. And we'll put those links in the show notes and the show summary for people to access easily. So, well, Stephanie, any parting thoughts that you have just around this whole new world of AI?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I feel pretty passionate about making sure that mental health providers and therapists get in on this space, not in a way because I think there's such a story about how this is going to threaten our work. And sometimes, or sort of feel overwhelmed by the technical pieces to it. And I want us to step into this space because I actually think a lot of tools are being made without our consultation of what it's like to work with people day to day and see what, how to promote change really looks like. And so I would love for us to be in the room and be thinking of these innovative ways that we can help people during this time, which people are going to need a lot of support during this massive change that we're
I'm on the optimistic side, and that I think it's going to make our lives easier to some degree. And I don't think AI will ever really replace therapists, but you're right. I think there's that storyline we're telling ourselves around that. So
I think it's helpful for us to just at least get in and try to practice and learn what it's about and notice our own reactions, because that's what everyone else is doing. It's sort of like we might not even understand what someone's experience is of going back and forth with a conversation,
Right. Yeah. So, well, Stephanie, again, thanks for being on the podcast. And as I mentioned earlier to everyone, we'll have links to Stephanie's things in the show notes and the show summary. And thanks again, Stephanie, for joining me, and hope to have another conversation with you here soon.
That would be awesome.
Well, a big thanks to Dr. Stephanie Thrower for being with me on the podcast. And I hope this gave you lots to think about, and just maybe feeling a little more comfortable with using AI if you are uncomfortable with using it. I know there are some of us that have just jumped full force into using it in different ways for different projects and stuff. And I know for me, it's just been a total game changer. And so be sure and check out Stephanie's things. You can find her at coachingwithdrtrower.com, and you'll find links here in the show notes and the show summary. And also, big thanks to our sponsor of the podcast, TherapyNotes. They are the leading electronic health record system for mental health providers. They're who I use in my practice, and absolutely am just totally impressed with all the new features they're adding. And speaking of AI, TherapyNotes has jumped in full force with using AI for note session and note writing. Their platform is just really second to none. And so just total ton of features there. And whether you're an insurance-based practice like mine, where we file all our claims right through TherapyNotes, and it's just a few clicks, and the things are sent off to the insurance company so we can get paid. But also, if you are a group practice, it's a great tool. Also, if you're a solo practitioner, TherapyNotes is a great tool to use as well. But be sure and check them out. Go to practiceoftherapy.com therapy notes. Sorry, I got ahead of myself. But practiceoftherapy.com/therapy notes, and use the promo code Gordon, just GORDON, and you can try them out for 2 months for free. So be sure and check them out. And also, thanks again for joining me. I am so grateful to you for listening into the podcast, and hope you'll take time to follow us or subscribe to the podcast wherever you might be listening listening to it. And and we've got more episodes coming up. We've got just a little bug in your ear. We've got our 400th episode coming up, and so got lots of special things planned for that particular episode. And just a little heads up, you're going to see some changes with the podcast coming with that episode. So be sure and stay tuned for all of that. So take care, folks, and we'll be back with you next week for another episode of the Practice of Therapy podcast. You've been listening to the Practice of Therapy podcast with Gordon Brewer, part of the PsychCraft network of podcasts. You can find out more about the other great podcasts in the network by visiting psychcraftnetwork.com. And if you haven't done so already, please visit us at practiceoftherapy.com and get your free private practice startup guide, along with a lot of other great resources and webinars and free things just by visiting. Also, be sure to follow us wherever you might be listening to your podcasts. This podcast is intended to be educational in purpose and is not intended to give legal, accounting, or counseling advice. If you need a professional, find the right person for that.
The Mercedes-Benz Dream Days are back with offers on vehicles like the 2025 E-Class, CLE Coupe, C-Class, and EQE Sedan. Hurry in now through July 31st. Visit your local authorized dealer or learn more at mbusa.com/dream.